Okay, this is the video for Module 5, and you're going to begin by reading Chapter 5 in spring. Chapter 5 in spring, let me see if I remember. Let's see, it was called The Common School and the Threat of Cultural Pluralism. All right, so this is important because remember the common school ideology you learned about, I think, in the last chapter. What we start to realize is that the American culture, the American society that at the time certainly cannot cope with the high ideals of the common school and then the realities of a very multicultural, diverse society. You know, American society has always been very diverse and very multicultural. How we chose to address many of the issues that arose from that reality, of course, has changed over time. I guess some would argue it hasn't changed very much. But anyway, the point is that with regard to immigration, you've got the Irish Catholics at the time who are being discriminated against, I guess they would say, and many would say in history. You've got Native Americans who are being completely pushed off their lands and out of any kind of common society. And then, of course, at the time, you've got, slavery still going on in the country. Now, there are some free blacks in some of the northern states, but certainly even in the northern states, the free blacks are not able to access the educational opportunities that, Anglo-white Protestants are. So in Chapter 5, I think you'll find a lot of interesting information about that time in history. And it will start to introduce the idea that this is why the common school ideal basically didn't work. If you view the Chapter 5 spring PowerPoint that I gave you, there's some there are some short video clips within that give you some background about some little pieces of history that you may have known about, that you may not have known about, that are definitely connected to this time frame in history. So make sure when you, again, watch the PowerPoint, view the PowerPoint, that you view it in PowerPoint mode, and that way you can click on the videos, the little images that lead to the link with the videos, and you'll be able to watch those. Okay, so then you're going to read Ravitch chapter 13, 14, and 15. Okay, so chapter 13 is about tenure and seniority. These are all really teacher-related issues in these three chapters. And then, of course, the next one has to do with Teach for America. And then the one after that has to do with Michelle Rhee, who was sort of the poster child for the corporate reform movement for a time. We don't hear much about her anymore, and I think that that's kind of telling in itself. She promised a lot of things during her reign in Washington, D.C., and as Ravitch explains, delivered on almost none of it. So it's an interesting... I always think it's really interesting that the corporate reform movement, and obviously my bias shows, having been a former teacher for a very long time, but how the corporate reform movement says that it's based on evidence, data, that it really wants to take, research and use that data and evidence to then move forward with what's best for our children, what's best for our school system. Yet when there's evidence and research out there, they choose to ignore it, or they choose to move forward without any of that. But, I guess that's probably something that happens in a lot of industries. But unfortunately, our public school system is one that it's happened over time. Obviously, things change. There's always a new method of instruction. There's always new fads and these types of things. But I think that with current times, it just seems like things are turning even faster. Kids don't turn on a dime. And certainly implementation of new ideas and new innovations takes time in order to see whether or not these innovations actually work or not. So Anyway, those are things to keep in mind when you read those chapters. But they're very interesting. And again, TFA, I mean, I've had students here at UGA that have gone on to be part of TFA. One of my colleagues was a former TFA'er. And, she had very good things to say about the organization. So I don't want to, outright, agree with Ravitch about Teach for America. However, I think that it's important to understand that the Teach for America movement, while it may be a good program, especially getting qualified candidates in front of students who wouldn't have them otherwise, that's obviously filling a need in this country. But the fact that we have that need in this country to begin with might be better addressed, I think is what Ravitch is trying to say. And certainly the teacher churn, or the constant, moving out of the field, doing 2 years for Teach for America and then having that be a resume builder, on the backs of urban poor children, I think is one of the big criticisms of the Teach for America program. Anyway, so go ahead and, read those. You're going to, take the quiz, take quiz number 3, respond to the discussion prompt, and then make sure that you turn in the group assignment. The video seems to be locking up here and there. Okay, so you're going to turn in your group assignment responsibility, and assure that all of your group members are aware of what their responsibilities are. And then you have an evaluation, of course, to fill out for that, and that's in the group assignment directions. All right, I think that that's it. I think the only other thing I'd like to mention is that you do need to start thinking about the topic that you'd like to choose for your research paper. That's a very important decision. You're going to be doing a lot of reading about that particular topic, so make sure that it interests you. All right, I'll see you in Module 6.